Okay, I'm gonna open up the sewer commissioners meeting Wednesday, April 30th. Bill Watson, aye.
Brian Donahoe, aye.
Okay, we have town council on Zoom and town administrator and
Finance director.
treasurer.
Finance director.
Finance, sorry. No, okay. Count, you want to bring it, you want to open up, Jay? Do you have something to discuss with us this evening, or? I don't even know why,
So Jay's here because, myself, Dave, Kathleen, I asked, we called Jay at my request to make sure that whatever the sewer commission decides to do to make up for the revenue loss, or to make up for the lack of funding to pay the bond
Mhm.
for the land, the leaching field. It's done. There was talk about a betterment assessment, which you can charge to new users.
Mhm.
There was talk about charging something along the lines of 25% to existing users, because you can't charge full betterment for something they've already bettered. Or have access to. It hasn't improved they've had a leaching field for the last 20 years in many cases. So it's not improving their property to have another leaching, right? So the thought was there could be a smaller percentage charge to existing users if you want to do that. I then heard the term supplemental assessment. Supplemental assessment? Special assessment. My impression, and we talked to Jay, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. You know, if it smells like a duck and it walks like a duck, it might be a duck, which might be a betterment assessment. So I asked Jay to attend today's a sewer commission meeting before a final decision was made. So we can just make sure that whatever decision you guys make, the town, the sewer commission has the authority, has the ability to make whatever decision you want.
Elaine's trying to get in.
Yeah, so obviously we're in the.
She's on her way from work.
So that's kind of the information of why Jay's here. She's here to help. He's here to help you guys. She's the right one. He's here to help you guys, I guess, or provide any guidance you may have on the charges, whatever charge you decide to make to fund the leaching field.
Elaine, are you on phone? Okay, can you hear all right? Okay, thank you. Brian, we have a meeting coming up on the 15th, right? Public hearing
Right.
to discuss this exactly. So this is exact subject.
Formalize whatever decision we make, I think is really the point. But I think Elaine should kind of chime in. This has been, and Dave probably have more specifics on this particular item. We're talking about a special assessment, or okay, so that was what Keith was just introducing that point and what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
And
Jay's on with us as well.
Okay. So I mean, from my understanding, I guess, I mean, I think we've got the ruling to do a special assessment. Now is it just a matter of the percent that we're going to be charging, or I just need to know what the concerns are with us doing the special assessment.
My concern, Elaine, and again, if Jay says it's appropriate, you guys have at it. Kathleen and I are absolutely not trying to get in the way of whatever you guys are doing. We're just trying to make sure whatever you guys decide to do can't be successfully challenged. And
No, and again.
Understood. So the concern that I have is when we talk about percentages that we're going to charge for existing users, it seems like it's awfully similar to a betterment. And is, again, I think Jay has indicated that, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's indicated that a betterment for existing users is allowable, but at a much lesser percentage than a new connection. And I know,
Okay, then I. We've been chatting around different things, but again, the public hearing's on the 15th, so nothing's been decided. But as far as the leaching field, that specific debt, what we're looking at as a possibility is not looking at it as current users versus future users, but just charge a fee based on the capacity of the plant. I should say based on equivalent residential units. And that's at the full capacity of the plant, rather than just current users are gonna pay, not making it up, $5,000 and future users will pay $10,000. We're just across the board gonna take the leaching field debt and divide it up into equivalent residential units. So whether you're current or future, you pay the same amount of money for the leaching field debt. Does that sound appropriate?
so I'm gonna,
Yeah, let me, we've talked about this about a dozen times. So I'm not comfortable with that. I think we've been clear about this. First of all, it was a heavy lift for us to tease out of the case law that you could charge people a betterment when you've already charged them a betterment. But we did find support for the notion that you could if they are actually bettered by an improvement. So this notion of a fee, I want to reject that. We've rejected that from the beginning. We're talking about an additional betterment on properties. The theory that we charge everyone the same is not accurate, and we've been really clear on this. It's a simple analysis. There's no magic to it. You get to charge essentially a reasonable approximation of the amount that someone's property value is enhanced or bettered by the improvement. So obviously with original sewer, for folks that didn't have sewer, that's a big betterment. That's a big benefit. It's tens of thousands of dollars, if not even more for some users based upon however you come up with the formula. There's different ways to do formulas. The cases indicate, and common sense indicates, that if you already have sewer and you're just getting an improvement that might enhance the quality of the sewer or enhance the durability or the lifespan of it, no question that you're getting a betterment. Your property is being bettered by that improvement. But that the analysis has to be how much, and it doesn't have to be exact, it has to be reasonable. And I just don't think it's reasonable to charge everyone the same. I think folks that already have sewer are going to be bettered less because it's an incremental improvement. We have said this over and over again. So I don't really care what formula you come up with, but it should approximate the value of the improvement. And absolutely, existing users of sewer are bettered less, their properties are bettered less than new users of sewer that are getting the benefit of the whole shebang. So I haven't done the analysis. That's not my job. I'm just saying the notion that everyone would be charged the same through a betterment process just isn't going to hold water. And I don't want you all to become vulnerable to a challenge that a betterment is unfair. I will state incidentally that when property owners challenge betterments, it's like a reverse taking in a way. They generally get a favorable view from the courts. I don't want us to be in that situation.
Jay,
I can barely hear Elaine.
So you put that closer to the speaker.
Jay, we talked about this. Can you explain that the leaching field, let's say $2,000?
I can't really hear her.
And
Okay.
You can talk to one of you and you can convey it to him.
Can anybody hear me?
Really?
it's, does it pick up on this? Oh, she's doing a speakerphone. Yeah, let's see if we can just clear this up real quick. We'll get better communication.
Yeah, I think so. Well,
It's really difficult for me to hear her.
Yeah, hang on. Elaine, how far out are you?
Is any better?
A little
bit
better.
for us. Jay, any better for you?
Little bit. Yep.
I'm at treetop. Okay, basically what it is I probably it's me focusing on the leaching field debt. What we're looking at for future customers is the leaching field debt. Let's say it's $2,000. If we go with the thought process of everybody paying the same, the existing customers would pay $2,000 for the leaching field. Anybody else who's buying additional capacity or is connecting new to the system is going to pay the $2,000 in addition to what the cost of the plant is. And with numbers have been figured around, it can be anywhere from $36,000 to $42,000 for new customers. Whereas the way we were determining the leaching field allocation was just the same price, but in theory, the existing sewer customers would be paying $2,000. Future sewer customers would be paying anywhere from $36,000 upwards for sewer.
It's two separate projects. One project, the $36,000 is for the plant expansion. Which, you know, I don't know, to me, I guess I'm a little concerned if we're focusing on just the leaching field, and again, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but me as an existing user shouldn't be paying, I think the value of my property is not increasing the same amount as the value of a property of a new connection for a leaching field. And because of that, I shouldn't be paying the same better, whether it's 2,000 or whatever the number happens to be. And I think that's kind of the basis for Jay's comments. I've already been bettered, and I've already taken the value of my house has taken into consideration the fact that I'm a current sewer user. And while I have a new leaching field that I can send my sewer to, it's not of the same value as it is for somebody who's brand new to the system, to the wastewater enterprise.
Okay, and this is probably, it's like Google. Everything I've been reading with DLS and DOR says if it's a special assessment, then, you know, it could be for infrastructure.
And then why would an existing customer?
Can you tell Elaine?
My name's Marcia Meekins.
Marcia's here for the meeting. She has a question.
I have a question. And my question is, why are you proposing an existing customer pay $2,000 for the leaching fields? Why wasn't that part of the original betterment analysis? Because leaching fields are a depreciating capital asset. So wouldn't you build in to the charge, the clear need to have to replace that capital asset?
I'm gonna hold you off for a minute. all your comments and we want to hear all of them, but we probably better set, the setting for that would be the public hearing.
Okay, so I thought the public
But
hearing was just.
we have internal, discussion here with town accountant. and-
She has a quick point. though.
Can I just
Okay,
make a point of, the initial leaching fields were not paid by the town. So this new leaching field is being paid by the town.
Elaine,
Like, is
so,
that-
Irrelevant. I think that's irrelevant.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Oh, I appreciate it. I get it.
Elaine, are you still there?
yeah,
All right, you're a tree top right now? Can you, are you driving now? All right, we're gonna take just a 5-minute recess, if we could, please, because Elaine really is has really been working on this and talking and communicating, so. We could do that, we're just gonna go into some other business, if that's okay, Jay? Can you hang on for another 5 minutes?
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right. We could still do, David, do you have any
So,
updates?
well, just, I don't know if I just addressed the point of charging the leaching fields initially on the betterment. You can't charge for new leaching fields that weren't built. So once the leaching fields are done, then you can charge a betterment. They couldn't have charged you back in 1998 for a leaching field you were gonna put in 20 years down the road. This is a new asset. If you follow what I'm saying.
I do
But-
follow that, but it just strikes me as, I mean, I have to do a deeper dive into the law, but it's like the plant expansion. These are depreciating capital assets, especially a leach field. They have a designated lifespan, after which you have to just establish another one. So I'm just a little taken aback that when we first, even though we didn't build the initial leach fields, I mean, we just accepted faith that they would last forever. I mean, we knew they were going to have to be replaced.
That was all-
That's a very good point. Just,
And I think it's irresponsible that we did not do something immediately, knowing that those leach fields needed to be replaced. And now we're grappling with this issue.
They have been replaced.
I know, but we don't know how to pay for it.
well, just to,
Part of the problem, if I could, they knew how they were gonna pay for it. They were gonna pay for it, just like they were gonna pay for the expansion of the sewer plant. They were gonna pay for it by new connections. Because the water department, as a single group, just made a decision to place a water moratorium on new connections. The funding source or the revenue source that the sewer department was gonna be depending on to pay for the plant expansion in the leaching field is now dried up, no pun intended.
But I was told that this is like, I don't know why we're worshiping at the altar of the water department here. I mean, as a town,
The water
I mean,
department, the water department has the ability, they're responsible for the operation and the,
not to declare a
distribution of water.
townwide moratorium.
they can,
I don't believe they have the power, and I think it is irresponsible of the town to just let them get away with it.
Their position is that they can't produce
Yeah.
enough water to satisfy the town.
I've been
They have
told
to-
that
they
that's
have to.
not true. The DEP,
so I'm
that
not.
there is a letter that says DEP says that the town has plenty of water if it wants to pump it.
So.
yeah, that's a whole different thing, but.
That's
But let's going back
They
to the
brought it-
question.
You brought it up. I'm sorry. We have all these excuses.
Okay,
for-
that's fine. We're that discussion, we're just gonna go into some regular business if you want to, David.
I would urge you, again, I'm not trying to be argumentative.
I heard from selectmen yesterday, there is this water letter from DEP.
There's no water letter from DEP.
No.
Okay,
There
well,
is,
then I will
and I
contact
think,
that
I
person.
think what
All right.
made me question is.
We're just discussing water
DEP
department
not
issues.
gonna case,
They didn't-
Crossovers.
Local decision by the water commissioners, and I would. urge
Jay, you still on there?
I'm going to.
Elaine's here now.
So that's
And
where
but we can do something, we just not sitting on our hands.
we're trying to do something collaboratively, but we need all parties to work collaboratively, and right now, I don't think that's happening.
The moratorium was declared.
All right. Back to this, the original discussion, town council.
I'm here, Jay. Okay, so what formula do people think would be acceptable?
So Elaine, I've said this a number of times, and you know, you and I are old friends. So when we bicker like this, people shouldn't think that I'm mad at Elaine either. So we've been bickering for years, and it always ends up fine. So I don't care what your formula is, because the cases suggest that if you come up with a reasonable formula, you're likely to get difference. The thing you have to focus on is you're going to have to put the particular properties that are getting bettered by the sewer into the appropriate category. People that are getting sewer for the first time are going to have to be subject to a different formula because their betterment is that much larger. People that are getting an incremental benefit from improved infrastructure, new leaching field, or whatever it is, new
Yeah.
pipes, whatever it is, advanced treatment system, I don't care what it is. Their value is going to be improved. Their property's value is going to be improved, but not as much as when they originally got bettered for the first time, when they originally got sewer.
Right.
You should work with your engineers, work with your staff, look at assessors' data, and come up with a reasonable approximation. You know, when we do betterments, it's not like we get, and if we're bettering 1,000 homes with a new sewer project, or 300 homes or 100 homes, it's not like we're doing 100 appraisals. We don't do that, but we do consider a reasonable equivalent residential unit, kind of what it is, and essentially what you would be getting. So brand new sewer system, you know, what is that value to someone? They never have to replace a septic system. That's kind of a value to it. Is that 30, 40, $50,000 in this day and age? That might be appropriate for a brand new sewer system.
Agreed.
For-
Customer.
Right. For someone that is already has sewer and is just getting an advantage to maybe improving the sewer service or getting a longer life to their sewer, it's going to be a smaller number, because it's like getting a septic system repair. So if I need to get a septic system repair, you know, a new D-box or a new tank or something like that, that's not the 50 grand that I had to pay for my septic system. It might be 10 grand. So I'm not an expert. I'm not going to come up with a formula. I just think you have to be careful when you're thinking about the categories of folks that are going to get betterments for this, that it be reasonably reasonable, and it doesn't have to be exact, reasonably commensurate with the value that you're improving their property by.
Okay, so let's just say it's the $2,000. That would
That
sound
seems like a
fair.
no-brainer to me.
That
But
sounds fair for a replacement, repair.
right, but you're a sewer commissioner, I'm not. You talk to your engineers, I
Yeah.
don't. You have assessors data that I don't have. That sounds approximately reasonable to me, but you know, I'm happy to look at it on the back end just as to form, but I'm not an expert in these values. I have common sense, and I might be able to tell you that, oh my gosh, that's insane. You guys can't charge that much. That seems crazy. But I think that's the kind, I don't really care what your number, well, I do care, but
Me too.
but what the number is right now isn't important to me. We can look at the numbers on the back end and say, hey, this is what we backed into. Does this look defensible? Are we going to get a hassle from people? People don't like getting betterments. Let's be clear, let alone people that already paid a betterment. So I would be very cautious. And I just want you to have the right process. And I think that's all that Keith is asking for too, and Kathleen. Let's just go through the right process, put people into the right buckets talk to your engineers, talk to your professionals, look at assessors data, kind of figure this stuff out that way. But I know we've been chasing dollars on paying for the sewer stuff. I think you have to, as much as we want to account for every dollar, you got to put that stuff aside. You just got to. This is an independent calculation, not on how much the sewer system cost you, but how much it's benefiting the properties.
And if I could just jump in real quick, again, whether it's $2,000 or $20,000. It was $2,000 for an existing user and some larger amount for a future user.
Mhm.
You're not gonna collect the future user fees for the future, so you still have a significant shortfall in your revenues.
Well, that's another conversation we can bring up. Been tracking the 1.6 million that is in our reserved betterment account, and Jeannie's been dealing with the Division of Local Services on that. I don't know if you want to speak to that, and
Well, we haven't heard from the finance, but we're talking with the lawyer, he was stating that he is not a finance person, but the legality, where half of it had already been used. And then there were considerations that need to be made because of the account that it's held in. So he didn't want to give a definitive answer until the legal financial person would speak on that.
So just like the betterment, this has been discussed for more than a month. And the reservation we've had, it is a poor financial decision to to use a significant amount of the $1.6 million.
it's not, this is all, we're trying to get everything in line so we can have our public
You
hearing. And
need to increase rates. That's the way you have to do it. You can't do it through.
that's on the table as well. It's been discussed on water bills. We're doing our homework on that.
Okay, and again, I'm not trying to be obstructionist.
No.
I'm really not. I just don't want to, what you guys decide ends up falling onto us in that DOR is gonna potentially challenge whether or not the sewer department in this case has a balanced budget, potentially will hold up our free cash certification. And that's
Right.
where I'm hesitant. So,
And that's,
and lastly, and I'll stop talking. You got, whatever decision you're gonna make like tomorrow, because, and I understand you have a public hearing in 2 weeks, so tomorrow is a little far-fetched. But as I think you've heard, we've got a little bit of a challenge now with Munis. You're running out of time to get whatever you want to put on the bill, if it's gonna go on a property tax.
we understand all that.
Okay,
We understand it.
okay, fair enough.
It all happened yesterday. The board was gonna be updated tonight. But since I have Jay, we do this on the utility bills. We do it on the water sewer bills. Can we still lien the property for that fee amount?
A betterment is a lien.
Okay, no
Yes.
matter how it's billed.
Right, you can, and we've talked about this before, we can't, there's no, I mean, you can call it a supplemental betterment. No matter what way we do it, it quacks like the duck that is a betterment. So you're gonna follow the same process that and create the same kind of liens as if you were doing a regular generic betterment.
Okay, so let's say if we do it on the water and sewer bill. And we make that
Listen, I'm not, other people are gonna have to talk about the billing stuff. I don't know how the town bills. That's not my forte. When you impose a lien on someone, that the betterment is that lien.
okay, but what I want to know, can that be is a flat rate acceptable?
I don't know what you mean by a flat rate.
Okay, we have quarterly service fees. We have a consumption rate, we have quarterly service fees. Can the quarterly service fee be increased to cover this? Is that fair if we did it that way?
It's just a different animal. You know, we've talked about you guys raising your fees to pay for either debt service or other capital expenditures. That's just a different discussion. You have every right to change your fees, to increase your fees, legitimate fees. I don't know what other fees you have to pay for expenses. Sooner or later, people get angry when they see their fees go up. But, you know, it's a reality that it's expensive to run a sewer system and you're going to have to increase your fees.
What I'm trying to get an understanding of is if it's connected to a utility bill, does the same proportionate for new and current and future users come into play? That's the question I have with that.
For fees?
Yeah, if we put it on the water sewer bills.
Well, if you're doing a fee, you're probably charging the same across the board, but I'd have to get much smarter about your fees because fees are generally part of just user fees across the board. A betterment is a different thing because you're measuring the improvement to someone's property.
But I think that, Jay, I think the question Elaine's asking, maybe ask it a different way. So we've established that if we did a betterment, an existing user should be charged a lesser amount than a new user because the existing user is not getting nearly the benefit that a new user would get, right?
I mean, maybe we could have a split fee. I mean, I could look at that. I haven't done the research on that. That's a slightly different question.
The question I think, Jay, is, so I think we've established we can't charge the same betterment for new users versus existing users. But I think what Elaine is asking is if we decided to, if the sewer department decided to have a fee on their quarterly sewer bill, could they charge the new users and a new user in the future and the existing users now the same quarterly fee that would basically be funding the same debt that they, in a different way than a betterment would be? So
I mean, you can cover debt service with fees. I mean,
so, and again, treating a fee, dealing with a fee and dealing with a betterment are apples and oranges. So there's gonna be a basis, frankly, for why you're charging an existing user a betterment for arguably something that you're replacing, that they've already paid a betterment on. But a fee itself, a quarterly fee itself, you can charge the existing user and any future user the same amount of money on their quarterly bills and collect the amount of money they need to collect. I mean, frankly, it's the same. Again, I would argue it's the same thing, whether it's some sort of a fee or it's increasing the sewer rates to collect that you're charging a fee to fund your operations. So whether it's a lump sum or it's in the rate, it's still the same. It's still serving the same function.
I just like to talk just now that I've listened to some of this. The problem I have with the fee is going to only people who are hooked up. So they're going to be paying. If we make this equitable, they're still going to be paying more under the fee structure because it's really for operation and maintenance anyways. It's not really betterment. But if we take the logic that the existing field was always meant to be temporary, which it was never meant to be a permanent field. The new field was always meant to be the permanent one. And to your point, it was meant to be the permanent for a very long time, like 80 years. It's not one of these depreciating things. It's designed so that we can balance and move things around. It's bigger than it has to be, is what I'm saying. So to go to what Jay's saying, or what I'll say here, if you take the position that the value of the leaching field that's there now was far eliminated, it's actually used 15 years more than it should have been. So we're putting in a brand new field that in fact is bettering and replacing, that is, the users that are on, and we're going to be charging those going forward. So is the question then, if you take $8 million is roughly what the new field cost. If we were to take some kind of depreciation to benefit the users, maybe a third of that instead of half. Something, I'm just thinking out loud, but it's less than the full amount. And then the 2/3 or something like that goes to the future users. And then the complicating this is what we have a vote now, 1/3, 2/3, right?
Yep.
So if this, so does that attempt to get to the point you're making? Well, all of you are making,
I don't,
where we depreciate, where we lessen the amount, but it's still a betterment because it is a replacement to an existing field that was going to fail and had to be replaced.
I get it, but
It's an upgrade for all the users that are currently.
Yeah, everybody's
Again,
benefiting from it.
to Jay's point, and temporary field, 25 years later, isn't much of a temporary field. I would argue.
We got lucky.
Okay,
The original plan called for it to be 8 years.
I get it.
Oh,
Yeah.
so.
But I'm trying to find if there's a way in what I'm saying that meets what you're saying, is that if we took that 8 million and divided it, not 50-50 or not 100% to everybody, which is the way it is now. If we went 50-50 or 1/3, 2/3, or some proportion that goes to Jay's comment about those people who are paid the betterment versus those who are going to come up. And the way then I would take that, the actual betterment for everyone who, as Elaine just said, we're going to make that, we're taking the $22,000 and prorating it with inflation, and it should be around 40-something thousand dollars.
Again, so a couple of things. First and foremost, you've got to raise enough money, however you decide to do it legally, to pay the debt, the annual debt. So that's the challenge you have for fiscal 26.
Today, that's our challenge.
Moving forward, when this water moratorium is lifted, then you'll be able to charge betterments to the new users of that leaching field. And you could then reduce, if you wanted to, if there's enough money coming in from the betterments, you could reduce those fees that you're charging
Exactly.
to the current, to what are gonna be current users. So that's how you deal with, I think, fiscal 26, and as you start getting new connections, and I think this is frankly why you might not want to put in a rate, you might have more flexibility with whatever the fee is gonna be. You can say, okay, I'm gonna collect $100,000 in fees in fiscal 27, so we can moderate or modify the amount of money we're charging in this fee.
So let's do this. If we take, I'm just looking at it a different way. So we're about 50% full of sewage that we can take. So take the leaching field, it's $8 million for the permanent one. Let's take the number 4 million and do all the rates on 4 million, knowing that the 4 million that's not being paid for later is going to be incorporated into the betterment for later. And then take the 4 million we have now in front of us and come up with the right number to pay whatever bills, whatever that comes out to. Does that address that your question, all these questions that it's not 100% of the cost, it's now 50%. And
So again, a fee to me is a fee that you would need to charge to collect the amount of money in fiscal 26 to pay your debt.
Right.
Right? Moving forward, you can better people or better the new users and take whatever revenues you've been collecting and apply those against this fee that you're creating. But again, the betterment, in my simple mind, the betterment assessment is if the project's $8 million and you can get 8 million, just my own stupid math, 8 million users or whatever you guys are calling these things, units.
ERUs, that's our.
ERUs, then your betterment's $1 in ERU. It's not $22,000 times inflation. Inflation is $8 million divided by the EAUs, ERUs that you're gonna be able, that you've increased based on the increased capacity, and that is your betterment.
That's the formula we've been using for every project. That's why this particular leaching field has been a challenge. Because typically we take debt divided by the equivalent residential units and we have our amount. But this time around, that's not the approach. So that's where we have our challenges, and that's where we've been bouncing things around for a few months now. And I know there's been a lot of conversation outside of this meeting that the whole board hasn't been involved in, which is why it sounds like we've been talking about it forever. But with Jay's presence, this might only be the second time the board's all talked about it as a whole. So that's why there's all these different questions. So it comes down to figuring out a formula if we go the betterment route. If we go the water sewer bill route, it sounds like we can do a fee, increase this, maybe the service charge,
The service fee would be what you'd have to do.
Increase
in order
that.
to be able to
and we can still
satisfy.
put liens on properties for that amount of money.
And then at some point in time, as things level out, the service fee can be reduced at any time that we feel that we have extra money.
It's,
Right.
the service fee really sounds like is gonna be your balancing number for the shortfall
Yes.
in your revenues.
That's what it comes down to.
So, because when this came up yesterday about Munis, we've been brainstorming a lot, Jeannie and I, and with Stacy, trying to figure out what our timing is with them, if we wanted to do something in the water sewer, and they can accommodate us after our May 15th meeting.
For the next billing.
Right, for the next billing cycle. So we've been trying to have different options to talk about tonight, so we can have a more definitive approach for the 15th on which way we're going. But yeah, this all came up yesterday. And my concerns have always been the lien, make sure that that's paid. Because the only time there's a lien on a water sewer bill is if the whole bill's not paid. We want our little piece paid, so but Jay, one more question, it's a repeat. So if we go water sewer route, we have a service fee for this. Can we put a lien on those properties?
Yeah, I mean, you can't double dip.
No, it'd be one of the, I mean.
Oh, it could be a cocktail. I mean, I don't, if you want to charge fees and charge a betterment,
No, in lieu of the betterment, forget the betterment. No, we're just gonna
listen,
charge.
again, you could put all of this on the back of fees. I mean, I think in some part there might be some concern by folks. I'd have to look at the classes of fees you're trying to do, of course, but you've always had the authority to raise fees to meet your expenses.
Right.
At a
So
certain point, I mean, I know that you've kept fees down over the years, so there's going to be some sticker shock, right? So,
Not necessarily.
well,
Speaking though,
not for me to say. You don't send me a bill for sewer, so I don't,
But we
We just
can-
increased it.
we can put a lien on the property for that piece of the debt.
Again, the lien is coming through the betterment,
Okay, so
not the fee. You don't put a lien on for fees unless someone
That's what it-
doesn't pay.
that's what I needed clarity on, because
Right. I
I have a
mean,
debt out there with no,
well, if someone doesn't pay, there's a process to put the lien on their property or to have a municipal lien certificate recorded or whatever it may be. But you don't record fees. You record a betterment.
I just wanted to be clear on that, that's all.
Yes.
Okay,
So part of that same subject, the town is going to be paying a third of this. The leaching field debt.
right,
And
For
the
this-
users are paying
for this year.
Plus their third.
for this year,
How are we billing them? Are we billing them?
the town
Yeah, how do we get that revenue into our
should be the same
Our
way
bank,
as,
basically? Would it be on their their water bill?
no, it's just one debt payment they
Okay,
pay us.
all right, so that's part of their whole tax bill.
Yeah.
And
When
then,
the debt payment comes due,
okay,
we'll charge $137,000 to the general fund and we'll charge the balance to the sewer fund.
but the users that are paying the 2/3, how are they being billed?
That's what we have to discuss, whether we were gonna do the betterment or water sewer bills.
That's not going,
That's our public hearing.
all right, no, I lost myself on this. So the rest of the towns, it's just gonna be part of the general,
Right, general fund.
So
and the other 2/3 to the users is not gonna be part of the general tax bill.
They'll get that, well.
Well, they will get the 1/3 part out of their tax bill.
Right.
So the other 2/3 have to come from our office? or
Yes.
our commissioner?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes,
All right, so we have to figure out whether that's gonna be part of a user fee.
right.
Or, we don't, because really, I don't like the word betterment, I don't like them going back, because then it's a whole different thing. There's a lien, and it's very complicated, and that's not what it's for, it's an upgrade. It needs to be done, I think, in the fee, as we're all talking. With the fee
Yeah,
schedule.
yeah.
It makes it cleaner, and, you know, okay, so we'll be discussing it on.
But we're talking about it being a special fee. It's separate from the O and M cost that we already established. It's kind of, it's like here, over here.
Yeah.
That's how I'm looking at
Yeah,
it.
and we've got our
Okay.
challenges with that because it would still go by equivalent residential units.
Hmm.
So we've already figured out they'd be like, it's working with Stacy to have multiple charge codes based on your EIUs. Because,
Right. But just for more clarification, as we sell off that 410, and we take in the betterment revenue, and we use that to pay off the capital,
yeah, we can reduce
and
the,
reduce it, and then go back in and reduce those amounts to
Yeah.
the town and to our users.
yeah, it gives us more flexibility
Right.
to be able to do that.
And if town meeting were to accept next year, taking a third of the debt for the leaching field, each year it's gonna have to go back to town meeting, so
Right.
each year you can adjust accordingly. You
So
get
that-
more users on.
Was that the way it was worded? It wasn't until this project.
It's
was
just
paid for?
1 year,
Just 1 year, okay.
just 1 year.
And on that note, are you considering how to bridge that gap in FY 27, 28?
Yeah, that's part of our
Is
discussion.
that part of your, gonna be part of
Yeah.
your rate structure?
Yep.
Because it was just a 1-year deal
Correct.
for this shortfall.
We know what our debt going out is. We know how many users we should get, and we divide them, basically come up with that based on the same unit formula we already established. So that's in place.
So I think we good with Jay. I mean, we know it's now up to us which approach we're gonna take.
I think so.
Okay.
It's more
The
confusing.
simplest one.
Elaine,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yeah.
before you let him go, are you clear on that 1.6 issue, or we just gonna?
We're gonna wait to hear from Jeannie's working with. Yeah. Because it's not drawing, the 1.6 isn't drawing down $500,000 in a year. We've got to, yes,
Can Kathleen speak on, the 1.6?
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I know we've talked about this in the past, those funds, it's a prepayment that was put in with all the other betterment funds, and it's been allocated for the next 10-15 years of debt service. So there's like a certain dollar amount, I think it's about $57,000. That's allocated as part of having enough coverage for the debt service for this.
Right,
So Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember the chapter, but that section 53J having to do with betterments. It's a little wordy, that provision, but it was to the gist of it, based on my discussions with DLS attorneys, was you're supposed to take the same amount for each year for debt service out of betterment funds. You can't just, it's not a, it's not a slush fund. You can't take whatever you need. You have to justify it. It's gotta be pretty base. You have to have it mapped out. So you can't take out like 800,000 this year and 100,000.
Yeah, no, those would be separate betterment events. I mean, I think the plan is that you're kind of like, for the next 15 or 20 years, these folks are going to pay this amount. You know, here, the total betterment they're getting is this, and this would be the annual if you're doing it on a 30-year or 20-year or whatever it is. Should be
Yes.
uniform, should be uniform.
Yeah, and that's what kind of was mapped out, and Carol had kind of put everything together, and that's the 1.6 million of, and I think it was at least 3 years of it's already been used
right.
towards debt service. So it's already like following that same process, so I don't know that it would really pass muster. I don't know, what do you think, Jay? If you would change how it was being treated, I think, while it's already, once it's already been set up one way, I don't know how you would justify taking it out and using it differently.
That's why Jeannie's asked for some guidance.
Yeah.
Again, we've been looking at everything and anything we can to make it all work.
Yeah, I talked to Jay, I talked to Ken Woodland at DLS about this, because I wasn't sure. And you know, they won't give you a formal opinion. He was of the mindset that it has to be, you know, pretty even, like, you know, annualized. You know, that money was for a 20-year project, so you're gonna divide it by 20.
Well, and a lot of what numbers as well don't include the interest of like $70,000 we get each year too. So those numbers we can certainly bring into play.
Well, that kind of does help you in a sense for those people who haven't paid their betterments. I think that's, you think about it, you don't want to mix your cash up with your commitments. It gets a little.
No, I'm just
you know,
saying, there's revenue out there that we haven't,
There's
put
there's
into
some
our
committed
formulas.
interest, but there's also some betterments that haven't been paid by people because they're, you know, they're late in their taxes. So you don't want to think that you're getting 100% of your principal betterment payments, and then all the interest is gravy. It kind of, I think, is kind of. And Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the interest is kind of to cover your costs and to give you flexibility if you don't collect everything that you need.
well, I haven't seen that as part of the equation, so that's all.
Yeah.
I mean, the interest is statutory more or less, right? I mean, so,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's calculated, it's all committed interest.
I'm talking about interest that we earn on our bank account, to make it simple. The money in the bank that's in our enterprise fund, we earn interest on that. And I believe it was like 70,000.
Yeah, that's part of your revenue estimate for your operating budget. That's what's reported to DOR.
But
That's
yeah,
one of your
that's
revenue sources that helps fund your operating budget.
right, but we haven't put it into any of our numbers. That's all I'm saying.
But so again, it's, you bet, just for argument's sake, $3 million operating budget. You've got a variety of revenues to offset that. One of the revenues you're offsetting that with is interest income. So it's already being applied there, so if I understand what you're saying, to suggest you bet $70,000 is your number that hasn't been allocated yet, I don't think that's true. It's been allocated to offset costs.
Yes, but we haven't included it in our numbers, is all I'm saying.
I don't know what numbers you guys have that we don't, so I can't speak to that. I can
Yeah,
tell you
I
that
think
in the budget-
to simplify that, based on our user fees, usage fees and quarterly fees and septage revenue. That's what we calculate our numbers on. We don't include that 70,000 interest, which is done on the back end. You know, Kathleen.
But again,
So those are odd.
and I understand that, but just to be safe, you're basing the user fee on 100% collection, and you aren't getting that. And that's what helps
Gotcha.
offset that.
Yeah.
Difference between 100% with whatever the percentage you're collecting is offset to some degree with the interest rates. So I just, again.
Yeah,
you're
and we-
getting, I don't, you're splitting hair, I'm willing to get as creative as we can get, that I think is.
Yeah.
It's just,
Sorry.
it's
That's all.
conversations.
Sure.
We're brainstorming. We're looking for all the avenues we can to make
Right.
this.
So we understand,
That's why we've been talking about it for months.
I get it, but.
We want to make sure that once we pull the trigger, we've done it right.
Yeah.
And we're
Yep.
fair to everybody.
Yep.
Fair and equitable. That's all we're trying to achieve, and to pay the debt. So. You good?
Jay, you
Suppose I could-
okay? You wanna-
yeah, it's all clear as mud, ready to
Yes,
go.
it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, talk to y'all.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
Elaine, I'm gonna turn the chair back over to you now.
You want to go on to the rest of the stuff? You want to talk about this a little bit more?
Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, guys. Have a good
Thanks.
night.
Do we want to decide or discuss?
We're gonna meet
Approach.
Tuesday, next Tuesday, right?
I can't make it Tuesday. We can change the date,
You meet any other night?
Yeah.
That week?
Wednesday or Thursday.
It's probably a few more thoughts now.
So you can't meet Tuesday,
Correct, I can.
okay, Monday? Monday,
Is that better for you?
Wednesday's too late, right? Oh, no, that's the other ones.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll be.
Wednesdays works.
Okay, Wednesday's better for me.
Wednesday works.
Okay, we'll do next Wednesday.
See if we can find a room,
Yep, I'll have to-
4:30, okay?
Okay,
With-
I'll have to check and then I'll
All right.
email.
You need 4:30 because you work until 4 on Wednesday?
Yeah.
That's fine.
yeah. And then we can, between now and then, work on a couple of approaches with betterments and, water sewer bills, just so we can,
Yeah, no, we'll
Yeah.
definitely have that discussion.
Yeah.
We'll be prepared for the 15th.
Make sure.
So
4:30
4:30,
on the 7th?
yes,
I have to confirm that we have the wrong,
Okay.
Anyone would do.
yeah,
We could find one.
okay, so we'll just,
But yeah, if you want
Work
to
on
continue
that.
the conversation.
yeah. So, Jeannie talked to Munis, yes, if you want to fill everybody in on the betterments.
so they had given us a template that has to be like a VPN template. Where the parcels, there's breaks in the sequential numbers, you can't mass import from that template. It won't work. The only option we would have is to do like a mass create for the ones that go sequentially, and then have to add in the ones that are off numbered.
Okay.
So it's,
So.
Sequentially by property.
It could be, let's just make up, Evergreen Street,
Right.
parcels 1 to 10.
Yep.
Then the next parcels on sewer property, so there's a gap.
Okay,
And then we pick up, Green Street, which is parcel 110 to 150.
okay,
They can't do it because of the gap in
all right,
between.
now, I know. Why can't?
So,
Because it's
it's back
listed
to
there, why
the-
can't you just?
They would all of them would have to be manually entered.
And you'd have to add in, if it was gonna be like a betterment, the 20-year payments. Where if you do something on a mass create level, it would figure out all of those schedules based upon the criteria that is
There's
needed.
quite a few houses that have already paid off the original betterment. When you change in, they pay off the betterment.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that build that.
Yeah, there's over 500 so far, right? That Aaron's
Well, that's
working.
part of the audit we're doing, yeah, trying to figure that out.
So anyone that's a user, not necessarily paying a betterment, fee, it's already paid off.
Right. And those people we would pick up on this,
Right. On the user fee.
right?
That's all you get them now.
Yeah.
Everybody at the same time. And that's controllable to a point where if we can start to lower, we can lower. Once we start to sell off the floor.
Yeah. It's just a matter of, again, if we take the EIU philosophy, which, you know,
I mean,
it's,
I know we just.
Well, that's the rules we have, so.
yeah. So we'd have charge codes based on one EIU up to the mall. I think the apartments are like 150. So that it's figuring out. No, it'd be the same amount as.
How do we treat any money that comes in when they prepay the betterment?
Should be
And
in
they,
a fund.
and they don't borrow any money, you know, they pay the betterment fee. Because if I got a single house, I'm gonna borrow the $36,000 and pay 2% for 30 years.
Yeah.
But if, like, the mall did, they came in, they paid lump sum. And that's where we've spent half of it on the infrastructure, the other half went into the bucket. But in the future, how do we handle that? Do we take that one lump sum and say, okay, we're gonna pay it off the top end of the debt?
The debt won't,
The debt won't change, the
No.
numbers won't change in it, but we could aggressively pay it down, but that's still not gonna take it off, what we have scheduled out.
correct.
And who wants to pay down a 2% note, 1% note?
We're locked in for the 20 years.
Yeah, they get the interest either way,
Right, in the admin fees.
But can
even
we
if you
take that
pay it
one?
off early.
Yeah, but if somebody pays us a lump sum, can we put that into a savings account, and take the interest and bury the interest back into it? While we
Each
continue
year
to pay
it's
down
added.
the rest of it?
So even if you
We would have all
prepay,
year
two
two.
the money coming in.
You pay 2 years of interest.
4.5%.
You do not pay one.
We only pay 2.
say again,
I don't know, just thinking ahead, and then that could be done yearly
It's a-
to pay down.
It's not like a car loan. It's not like if you pay it off, you know what I mean? Like it's, these are committed payments. So if you're gonna be charged X dollars, $100 for this year. They're gonna calculate, there's a separate charge that gets added, it's 2% of that $100. If you no longer owe 15 years of payments at $100, you no longer will be, are responsible for the interest that corresponds to that. and you pay it off, you pay the principal that's outstanding. You do not calculate 2% of that outstanding balance and whack them for that too. Because, you know, you're paying like, because they're borrowing, you know, the town pays up front. So it's the town's money that's out and we're paying, you know, cost associated with it. So that's what kind of offsets those costs. It kind of makes it a little, it helps the town cover their costs, and it's the net present value of the money. You know, we're out all of it, and so we're being paid incrementally back, but we're, you know, because we borrowed the money, we're taking their money and paying our debt service back. But it is kind of, you know, set up in a way where it's, you know, it's not a money-making scheme, you know, you're not trying to, it has to be reasonable, and it's, you know, the reason being is there's cost associated with, you know, maintaining, you know, the debt service. You know, the collection process and, you know, taking into account that you're not gonna collect 100% of what you bill.
Okay, so we go on the rest of our,
I think so.
this,
And just one more thing,
yep,
with the Department of Revenue attorney that I talked to yesterday,
yep,
if we do put it on the water bill, water sewer bill, in the pamphlet, it says a reasonable amount of time. So there is no like case study or anything that has come up. But when in talking with him, he was saying 6 to 8 months would be reasonable after completion.
okay,
He wouldn't go any more than a year.
yep,
And when we were talking, the comfortable is like 6 to 8 months.
okay.
But, and not to jump in, but to kind of clarify, the reason you want to start sooner than later, so you have more quarters of billing and collecting those fees. So
Right.
you will have more funds available for 27's debt service.
Right now, we're
I mean,
paying,
that's the intention.
right now, we're paying 26 without any additional money coming in.
Yeah, you're paying 26 with a capital article that.
Right, but-
Appropriate.
Right, so.
So it's money from before, which, you know, is instead of being set aside for, say, a capital purpose, it's being rolled in. to the
We-
operating.
We're well aware, the
No, but
sooner we
just-
can
just-
get it going, the
No, but
better
just
off
so
for
it,
everybody.
because there's so many different buckets of money and for everyone kind of who's listening, but that's what it is. But if you start like really late in the year,
We don't plan on doing that.
so what I was saying is if you start later in the year, it just, because of the way the billing cycles work, it does make it a little bit tricky. But at least you're not constrained by the tax billing cycle. That was the betterment issue. That's why we were talking about deadlines, is because we have to have all the information in Munis to go, and we test for all the tax bills. It takes like weeks.
Agreed. That's why we had our hearing the 15th, and that's why the target date we had been given was May 27th. So, yeah, we were
Yeah,
working with the deadlines we have. Again, our public hearings, the 15th. And a decision will be made if it's betterments or user fees, because that's the purpose of the public hearing, what the amounts will be. Like I said earlier, that they can get on the water sewer bills, probably, hopefully for the next quarter,
yeah.
if that's the route we take, so.
Today, this quarter just closed out.
Yeah.
They read the news today.
So,
They were starting to go
yeah,
yesterday.
so,
or the day
Yeah.
before.
Probably,
Yeah.
they take 6 weeks to get it before you get them.
yeah, we do have 26 debt paid, and, you know, we were fortunate enough, town meeting voted for 137, so that also gives us, you know, some revenue that's gonna make a difference. So all that will be all taken into consideration when we move forward with whatever approach we're gonna take. You have any more questions that we may or may not be able to answer before our public hearing?
No, in terms of what you're doing now, I have a lot of questions about why. Why things are the way they are, but that's way beyond this meeting.
Yeah, just in what fashion?
I'm just the, the lack, what appears to be a lack of cooperation between significantly important town departments.
Can you clarify that for,
It would be the water department.
okay, we're not the water
I
department.
know you're not, but it's your.
But you're in our sewer meeting saying
But
lack of
your
cooperation.
revenues, You're in the spot you're in because we don't have any. We haven't had any new development for 2+ years. And according to the water department, our new well won't be online for another 7 to 10.
Well, that,
So,
we're all working together, specifically Brian, to try to work with the water department, and they work with us, so we're all trying to get to the other side of that and make that not, make
again,
it sooner than later.
it didn't come across that way at times. It came across that everybody was.
I really don't want to talk
I
about the
know, but
water
you asked
department.
me.
No, I know, but
Again. you
I mean,
asked me and
I can't speak for the water department, so I don't wanna,
No,
and
that's
it's not fair to them, for them not to be here to be able
I
to,
know, but then don't ask me.
I didn't know what you were gonna say,
Okay,
ma'am.
well, that's the risk to take. So, I
I
guess
know.
that's why I'm here. I
Well,
will go to
welcome
the next
anytime.
Water Commission. I will go to their meetings as
Okay.
well. It's a significant concern, to me.
Okay,
I don't know how we're gonna pay our bills. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Town meeting. We'll square away with that. Financials, I think we've done that. Update from superintendent.
Yeah, just one of the new developments is we had a laborer start this week,
Oh, good.
started Monday. So far, so good. He's gotten his hands full. It's been pretty busy just the last 2 days, so. His name's Ryan McKee. At some point, I'm sure you guys will get to see him out and about, but other than that, we've worked through our effluent pump problem that we had. We've got 2 up and running. We had a failure of one a couple weeks ago. Now we've got an electrician that determined there's 2 little components in there, so we're just getting pricing on 2 little components on it. I had the VFD manufacturer, the drive mechanism that tells our pump to run. They wanted $6,000 just to come in the door to look at it. So we're trying to find another avenue at this point to just replace the 2 pieces based on our own electrician's assessment. So working on that. Yeah, nothing else crazy going on.
And it looks like the punch list for the leaching fields getting wrapped up, or?
Yeah, Brian and I have reached out to CDM and we have a site visit lined up for. You have it on the top of your head? I have it in my calendar, yeah.
Monday? Monday,
Wednesday, the 7th, at
Wednesday.
9
Yeah.
AM, so next Wednesday. So hopefully we'll get through some of those hurdles, try and get through our punch list on that end of things.
And plan expansion, is that punch list?
The plan expansion should be all complete. I did mention to Tom in our Zoom, or Teams call the other day that there might be some miscellaneous reimbursement items that Jeannie had asked me to check with Tom on. And he told me he'd taken a fresh look at it. So,
Okay. Very good. That's all I have.
The leaching fields, the receiving any effluent yet?
not yet.
One thing that Dave and I have to do now that town meeting's over is surveying the well that's out there that doesn't seem right. And check a couple of the other wells while we're out there, and I'll try to do that with sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Get the elevation squared away.
I want to check the wells because the flow, there's some discrepancy that the way the water appears to flow from all the data that CDM had. Most of it flows towards the golf course. When you look at all the data I have that's been done previously by DEM and others, it flows the other way. So a lot might be going on. But when the MBTA took all that gravel out, I think that if I'm correct, it should be mostly going to Smelt Brook, because we're right on the top of the hill.
Okay,
And that's a very important thing for some of the water department pieces that we started talking about a little bit at town meeting. Which gets into the water management. So that's, I want to just take a couple of those. It won't take us an hour to do this.
And when will that permit be closed out?
That permit's done, actually. All they have to do is, we need to give them this data and do it, the samples. We're gonna do that anyways. We should be doing the samples anyways, no matter what. That should be done.
And when will the loan close out on that?
that's closed.
That's
but,
closed.
yeah, we have our first payment due in July.
I'm hoping-
I know we,
But the good news is the field's available to do, if something happened tomorrow, that field's available. That was the main thing getting.
yeah,
If you didn't have it there, you just don't build it overnight.
Yeah.
But now that it's there, all that's, the crisis is over.
Just a quick follow-up question on the leaching field that's underneath the transfer station now, that's not receiving anything. And it's not certified to receive it yet?
No, that can't, well,
We saved money by not certifying.
so we can use it, but before we use it, we have to test all the wells.
Okay,
Which actually reminds me, I was in a discussion recently that the police department might be putting some sort of shooting
I heard the
Facility
shooting range was going.
at the transfer station. And my concern was if they use bullets with any sort of lead in them, that can contaminate that,
Absolutely.
and that area would test. So there's been discussion
point.
about them getting
Yeah,
bullets.
I would
that
have
are
told them it
not-
was an indoor or an outdoor.
I think it's outdoor.
Yeah, because I can't see them putting up a building.
They're looking at getting non-lead
Yeah.
bullets.
Well, the
It's a
other
little bit
option,
of a premium.
the other option is if they're gonna be using a direct mound as with whatever they have. I've done a bunch of these cleanups of,
They're using our plant as the backstop.
but the idea is you put a liner. So behind that dirt mound, you have an impervious liner that's down about 6 or 7 inches and underneath all the way in front. And then all the blood pieces get collected and they're easy to pick up. And they don't infiltrate because that lead is very soluble and it will contaminate the groundwater.
Hmm.
So that would be,
So those concerns were brought up at a department head meeting, and let's say leaving there, they were gonna look at getting bullets that were non-leaded, so it doesn't contaminate any of the natural environment, smelt work, leaching field.
are they
and
gonna,
start triggering other things.
they're gonna build something?
I
It's in
believe
the
so.
open range, so it'll be 100 feet back or so, and the mound. And the mound is our hill, where our plant is up on top.
Yeah,
It
I'm not,
faces, it's gotta face that way, because the tractor and Copper Beach on the other is facing the other way.
yeah, I'm not sure exactly where they were talking
Yeah.
about.
Because it might be a good idea just to suggest what Brian said, even if they are using non-lead.
They did talk
Oh,
about that they put a liner in, and
Oh,
then
okay.
every couple of years or certain specified period of time, they actually go in, take the soil, sift through it, get all the
Right.
the fragments out, and
Okay.
put the soil back.
actually in the front of the mound, it can be thinner. So you actually take all the dirt out, because there's tiny little fragments. There's a tiny little fragments you can't see that are soluble, more soluble. So you take all that soil out, but then in the mound, that's something you would do the same thing, but typically if they're using 45s or whatever, they can penetrate into the soil quick. So it all depends. Take the whole thing out, it's, there's 3,000 bullets in there, so that's a lot of lead. And it's amazing how shrapnel it is, blow up in all kinds of pieces. So there's all these little tiny pieces of lead in that.
So to answer your question, as long as we test it, we can use it.
Okay.
But now that the new leaching field was put in, it would just be more testing expense
Right.
by testing. Once you start using it, you've got to test it every
Yeah.
month.
So we
There's
don't,
no
we don't
sense.
test that like every 5 years anyways, no matter what. Only if it's being used.
by our permit, that's if we're gonna be using it. I would like to just get a base
Yeah,
test done on it because we had 2 new wells drilled and seeing we haven't used it, it'd be good to have a base. If our effluent pumps ever let go, like we had that issue the other day, if we had to just gravity feed it over, that would give us the option to gravity feed
oh,
over.
very cool. Yeah,
And so it's another safety net for us and having a baseline test on it would be a good idea.
Intermittently, very, because there's a whole bunch of data about where that water goes. That's why the leaching field was never put there.
Oh, really?
Because Barry Matthias complained about it on his bogs. The discharge plume from that location goes right under this highway into his bogs.
Oh,
That's why it was moved. Davis.
okay. I
So
know.
all those bugs
Hmm.
along either side of Route 3. That's why that will
And
be.
I saw all of
Yeah.
it. It's based on.
It's a reason for
recently.
everything.
Is that all from memory?
It has to be, because I
Yeah.
never saw that.
Yeah, I've been reading through these
Yeah.
recently, and sure enough,
Amazing, huh?
it still works.
Man, get hit by a truck, you're all set. You're all-
Oh, we got too much to do.
I'm excited. I'm really tired from yesterday and today. From dealing with a lot of stuff, a lot.
Should, let us know when you think it's good for us to have a meeting with water, just to,
It's gonna be soon.
okay,
In fact, I hope that we can have a special meeting sooner than the 15th.
okay.
So we can have a fair discussion and I think things are going in the right direction.
Okay,
I'm surprised at how much the world knows about what I'm doing.
Some information accurate, some.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
well, that's why I kept my mouth. I mean, I'd love to answer the question, but it's another.
that's why I think it'd be good to have a joint meeting.
But the point has been made that if this is resolved, it answers all the questions that were being discussed. And provided these projects go forward that have been delayed.
As far as the committee next week, that's just to kind of get a wrap up of how the commission feels about going forward with these leaching field expenses.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
15th, in preparation for the 15th, so we can at least pick a direction, so when we get to the meeting, we're gonna, it's gonna, we can vote either the user fees or betterments. And have that discussion, but at least have the data understood and everything.
yeah, we also, we have a number on actually what we need from the existing customers at this point in time.
Not after tonight, no.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, even for the town, they have to know what their third is. At least that.
That should be easy, right?
that, yeah, that, oh,
Yeah,
yeah. from
that's
the-
easy.
From the sewer customers, what is it? It's, okay. 266, because the town paid 130, the town's contributing 137,
So that number should be fixed, the 137.
and then
It's how we break the other one up
So-
into two numbers.
266 if we went with betterments.
But it's not actually two numbers. That's what's confusing me. We only have one people to bill. We can't bill non-existing customers.
Right.
So there's only one bill. So we have to adjust that down to reflect that we're gonna pick it up later. That's how I hear it, right?
Well, if,
So-
yeah, doing it on water,
So, and I think that makes it easier for us. My suggestion was trying to get this, let's take half of that. It's not 8 million anymore. It's 8 million for the town. Because that's an ongoing thing. But it's only 4 million for what we have short. It's half of it. You know what I'm saying?
yes. That formula comes into play if we went the betterment route. That we can't charge existing customers,
Right,
we have to proportionately charge them based on how they're bettered.
but I thought the same formula also would work on the fees.
That's the impression I got on the fees was no.
Okay, all right, so that,
Is it, did I hear that?
if it's, so the fees, we're back to the same place we
Because
always were.
it's a fee.
We're back to the same place we always were.
If if a shortfall with a was for easy math, 400,000, say range.
Yeah.
The town took the 137, leave somewhere in that 260 range. And then you divide it by your amount of ERUs. Essentially.
Only ERUs instead of each house, it's ERUs.
We
Right,
can, we
'cause-
can set up different charge codes to be appropriate for the particular property.
Yeah. so-
Because if we, otherwise, the apartments have 150 ERUs. And we want them to, I mean, I would think we would want
Be
to,
that
They
much.
should
Yeah.
pay more than someone with a
Yeah,
single.
That makes,
ERU.
I thought that was gonna do anyway, that was what we were gonna do anyway.
yes. And if we do it on the water sewer bills, that brought a whole nother, it's the same thought process, but how do we mechanically, physically make that happen in the system?
It
So-
allows,
It,
without
The-
putting it individually.
that would be
Charge
betterments.
code.
The water sewer bills, we can have a couple of charge codes associated to one EIU, they could pay. And making it up, $100. The 150 EIUs can be. What's that, $1,500,
$1,500.
so. And then we just have to talk about, in the rules and regulations, the mechanism, let's just say it's. $2,000 per EIU over the 20 years. I was gonna say, if that gets paid off. But we have to think this through, because, I mean, I like the flexibility of it. But if someone, the new owner would take it on. Okay. I'm done.
I'm really relying more on you guys in this, when
Yeah.
this is like,
Whoever's getting water, whether it's you in the house or someone else buys that house later on, they're getting the same water bill. So
Yeah.
it'll follow the property.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I was thinking, if you base it on a user fee. That's just a flat rate. So let's say somebody has 5 bedrooms. They use a fee go 5 times. Coming out,
yeah. That's why we'd have to do different charge codes.
that's what I'm saying, okay.
Yeah.
So,
It would, the flat fee would be the same amount, but then you would be multiplied by EIUs.
okay, so realistically on our bill, it should say user fee and usage fee. And then there should be another line item on that says, leaching field upgrade,
Yeah,
and then you have 5 ERUs, and you get that times 5.
Yeah.
All right.
it seems to make sense, because it follows that ERU unit rate formula we've been using all along.
right.
So if we were to go that direction, we should probably consider, like you're saying, it's something we gotta look at carefully going forward. If in the future, like right now, if that fee is for the leaching field, let's say something catastrophic happens, that we need additional money to fund something. Say we have an unusual high tide and, I don't know, some equipment gets wiped out. It'd be I don't know, an asset maintenance fee or just some other word. So it's not just tied, let's say, to the leaching field.
They don't use plant upgrade because they're not paying.
Yeah, I'm not sure what verbiage to use, but you know, is it something to consider?
Replacement of leaching field.
Yeah, I mean, I would,
Asset fee,
I just,
like
don't,
when you pay your electric bill, it's a distribution fee.
Right.
There's a
What they
lot of
use it
fees.
for, yeah,
That's an electric.
but
10 of them. Yeah.
just so you're not pigeonholed into something.
Right.
You know, that, hey, that's all you can use that for is a leaching field. You know, just a more generic name of some sort.
Yeah. Going to that point, this is another thing I was thinking about, the way we were talking about it, and we're not bettering everyone same, I keep thinking we are. But let's take that, if say the pump at Summer Street goes down, and we put assessment, then somebody in Rocky Neck says, well, we don't use that pump. It goes this way, our pumps are fine. So you can start doing that kind of stuff.
Well, and that's why maybe just a facility maintenance fee or
You know?
something.
If you start splitting hairs like that, well, now we're really. But everyone shares that So I'm still not by that, but if that's what the answer is, that's what the answer is.
Continuity of service fee.
Infrastructure
Yeah,
upgrade.
when
You
we
know?
were looking at the different towns, they have a variety of line items, administrative fee, user maintenance fee, property management fee. There was like a slew of line items that different towns had on their bills.
An infrastructure upgrade or infrastructure improvement fee. It's not maintenance, it's, that would be, use the same thing for your example, that new one. If we ever an example, infrastructure fee number one, infrastructure fee number two, that's for this
Yeah.
giant pump station, whatever.
Continuation of service.
But again, the O and M, the betterment process and the fees we charge should be going to the bank, the O and M fees for that emergency too. We should have a big bank account so that,
Well, we should, we've been using what we have, seeing
Yeah.
this water moratorium in place. We've been using our emergency funds to pay for this.
Right.
At town meeting and.
have a nice big number, we have to pay ourselves back and keep track of all those numbers, because we have to pay ourselves back.
And the good thing is that we are paying this year, with the article money, and like I said, that would need to be, replenished, so that it gives us a year to start building up some money for the debt in 27. So, and whatever the amount ends up being, if we go on the water sewer bill, it would be 4 quarters. They'd have to pay in 4 quarters. So,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Yeah.